Okay, let's just be real for a second. The word narcissist, it's absolutely everywhere, right? I mean, it's the label we slap on our ex on TikTok, it's the armchair diagnosis for a politician we can't stand, it's pretty much the main event at family dinners.
It's really become our go-to for anyone who seems, a little too into themselves. But have you ever stopped to think, what are we really talking about when we use that word?
Because behind that buzzword, there's a very real, very complex clinical condition. So today, let's peel back that label and find out what's really going on beneath the surface.
And the very first thing we need to wrap our heads around is that narcissism isn't just one thing. It's not a monolith. It actually wears a few very, very different masks.
So we usually picture the overt narcissist, the showman. Think Jordan Belfort in The Wolf of Wall Street. All charisma, all confidence, that is until you question them. But then you've got the covert type, the martyr. A perfect example is Tom from Succession. He seems anxious, kind of self-deprecating, but underneath all that is this deep-seated belief that he's the secret victim in every situation. The grandiosity is still there, it's just hidden under a big cloak of complaints.
Now, once you know about these types, it's really tempting to start seeing them everywhere. But hold on, because here's the crucial twist. Not all narcissism is pathological. In fact, a little bit of it might actually be good for you.
This is what we call healthy narcissism. Think of someone like Leslie Knope from Parks and Rec. I mean, she is unbelievably driven and confident, absolutely, but she uses that energy to lift other people up. This is the kind of self-belief that fuels ambition and resilience, and you're not tearing other people down to get it.
So that leads to the big question, right? Where is the line? How does that healthy competence cross over into a destructive clinical disorder?
Well, the key is to see it not like a light switch that's either on or off, but more like a dimmer dial. Way down low, you have healthy self-esteem. In the middle, you start to find narcissistic traits, that friend who gets a little grandiose when they're under pressure. And it's only when that dial is turned all the way up to max that you get to clinical narcissistic personality disorder.
So how many people are we actually talking about at that far end of the spectrum? Well, estimates suggest that true clinical NPD affects up to about 6% of the population.
But then, look at this number, up to 20%. That's 1 in 5 people who might have significant narcissistic traits. And that is why the term feels so common. We're interacting with the traits far more often than we are the full disorder.
So what is that dividing line? How does a clinician make the call between someone with a few difficult traits and someone who has an actual diagnosable disorder?
Well, it comes down to what clinicians call the 3 Ps. First, the pattern has to be persistent. This is the story of their life, not just a chapter. Second, it's pervasive. It shows up everywhere, from the boardroom to the bedroom. And finally, and this is the big one, it's impairing. It leaves this wake of broken relationships and hurt feelings behind them. And these 3 Ps describe a core set of features. There's an inflated sense of self-importance, what we call grandiosity. There's a bottomless need for praise, almost like a constant hunger. A profound inability to see other people as real individuals with their own feelings, and a deep-seated belief that they are special. And so, the rules just don't apply to them.
But all of that, the arrogance, the entitlement, is just armor. To really understand what's going on, we have to look behind the mask, at the internal world that all that armor is protecting.
Because what you see on the outside is a total illusion. The arrogance you see, it's a mask for a deeply fragile self-esteem. That feeling of superiority hides a constant, gnawing envy. And that whole self-sufficient act is a defense against a crippling fear of being seen as what they truly believe they are. Ordinary, that fear is the engine that drives everything.
There's this quote that just gets to the heart of the tragedy of it all. Their need for others, in the form of admiration, is deep, but their love for them is shallow. Just think about that. They need an audience to feel real, but they're completely incapable of truly connecting with any of the people in it.
So when you understand the wound that's behind the behavior, how does that change how you deal with it? How can you protect yourself without becoming completely closed off?
The key is this balance of validation and boundaries. You can validate their feelings to de-escalate, something simple like, I hear that you're upset, but you must also set firm boundaries. And crucially, you cannot get drawn into an argument. It is a game you can't win. Their behavior is a symptom of their own struggle. It has nothing to do with your value.
This requires a pretty radical shift in your goal. You're not aiming for some dramatic breakthrough where they finally see the light. You're just aiming for a steady, sustainable way of interacting that works for you.
And that means adjusting your expectations of what this relationship can actually be.
It all comes down to this essential paradox. Compassion without boundaries just leads to burnout. But boundaries without compassion can feel cold and disconnected. The challenge is to hold both at the same time, to see the pain and to protect yourself from it.
So the question I'll leave you with is this. Once you stop seeing just a narcissist and you start to see the fear that's behind the mask, does it change how you navigate the relationship? Does it change how you see the difficult people in your own life?